Imagine that every tear you have ever shed, every smile that has brightened your face, and even the darkest nights of your soul have a greater purpose. No, this is not just a comforting idea. It is a truth that pulses in the heart of the universe. Have you ever wondered why some situations in your life seem impossible to understand? Why does it sometimes feel like the ground beneath your feet is collapsing and all that remains is silence? Listen carefully. Today, this message has not reached you by chance. God is working in your life, even when you cannot see it. What you call a delay, He calls preparation. What you consider a loss, He sees as a redirection. When you think you are alone, God is shaping you for something that only He knows how grand it is. Believe, nothing that happens in your life is in vain. Every battle, every tear, every closed door has a reason that in time will be revealed. But for this to happen, there is something you need to do today. Trust, right now in the comments, with all your heart. Lord, I trust in your plans. Write as if you are letting go of fears, doubts, and pains. By doing this, you are declaring your faith, even amidst the storm, and letting God act in your life. It is not just a phrase. It is an act of courage, a step towards the purpose He has reserved for you. Watch this video until the end. I promise that every word you hear will be like a balm for your soul. And if you feel that you need more words of strength and hope, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Your journey of faith is just beginning. Number 1. Proverbs 19 verse 21. Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. When you read this verse, can you feel the depth of the words? They are not just letters on a page or something to memorize and recite. These words have the power to change lives, because in them lies an undeniable truth. No matter how many plans we make, how many dreams we have, or how much energy we invest in our paths, what truly prevails is God's purpose. Now allow me to speak to you directly, because this is not a moment for softness or beating around the bush. Stop for a moment and think, how many times have you found yourself lost in your own plans? You set a goal, work hard, dedicate yourself, but suddenly everything collapses. Maybe you feel that the world is against you. Maybe there are moments when you ask, why did God allow this? Does He not see my effort? But the truth is, we are often so caught up in our own wills that we forget that God's ways are greater than ours. The conflict of human plans. It's natural to make plans. We all have dreams, goals, and desires. And there's nothing wrong with that. After all, we were made to dream, to create, to seek a better future. But here's the point. Our plans, as well-intentioned as they may be, are limited. They are born from what we see, from what we feel, from what we think is possible. And yet they fail. Why? Because our plans are too small for God's purpose. God sees the whole. He doesn't look at your life as a sequence of days or months. He sees eternity. And when He allows something not to happen the way you expected, it's because what He has for you is infinitely better. How many times have you made plans that seemed perfect? Maybe it was a job you dreamed of, a relationship that seemed ideal, an opportunity that seemed tailor-made for you, and then it all falls apart. The door you so desired closes, and you cry. You ask yourself, God, why did this happen to me? I didn't deserve this. The answer is simple, because God's purpose will always be greater than anything you can imagine. When plans don't work out, it's hard, I know. It's hard to trust when everything seems to be going wrong. But let me ask you, have you ever looked back on your life and realized that something that seemed like a loss was actually a blessing? Have you ever experienced something that seemed like the end, but ended up being the start of something wonderful? That's God at work. And that's why Proverbs 19:21 is so powerful. It reminds us that even when our plans fail, God's purpose remains. And His purpose is unwavering, it's perfect, it's good. God doesn't make mistakes. The challenge of trusting in God's purpose. Trusting in God's purpose is not easy. It is an act of faith. It is letting go of control. And that scares us because we want to be in command. We want to know what will happen. We want to have security. But here's the truth. True security lies in trusting in God's plan. When you trust in God, you're not saying that everything will be easy. You're saying that you believe that even in difficulties, God is working for your good. And that changes everything. Now, I want you to stop for a moment and write in the comments, "Lord, I trust in you." Don't leave it for later. Don't hesitate. Because this declaration is an act of faith. It is a surrender. And when you declare your trust in God, something starts to change within you. It's not magic. It is a transformation. It is a recognition that you are not alone, that God is in control, that His purpose will prevail. The freedom of letting go of control. Let me tell you something important. Letting go of control is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. It is a recognition that you trust in something greater than yourself. And when you do that, when you surrender your plans to God, you experience a peace that surpasses understanding. It's like a weight is lifted off your shoulders, because now you know you don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to know what will happen tomorrow, because God already knows. He knows every detail, every twist on the road, and He is with you every step of the way. If you believe this, if you feel it in your heart, declare now in the comments, "Lord, I surrender my plans to you." God's purpose is unchangeable. Here is something you need to remember. God's purpose does not change. No matter what happens, no matter how many times you fail, no matter how many doors close, God's purpose is eternal, and He is working in your life even when you can't see it. You might be going through a difficult time right now. Maybe you're facing something that seems impossible to bear, but let me tell you something. God has not forgotten you. He is with you. He is shaping you, preparing you, strengthening you, because His purpose is not just about what you do, but about who you become. And He is working to make you stronger, wiser, more full of faith. If you believe that God is working in your life, even when you don't understand what is happening, write in the comments, "God, I trust in your purpose." Try the role of humility. Trusting in God's purpose also requires humility. It requires you to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers. And that is not easy, because pride makes us believe that we can do everything on our own, that we can control every detail. But the truth is that humility is the path to true freedom. When you recognize that God knows more than you, that He has a greater plan, you find peace. Because now you know that you don't have to carry this burden alone. Declare now, "Lord, let your purpose prevail." God is in control. Never forget this. God is in control. No matter what you are facing, no matter how lost you feel, God is with you. He is guiding every step. And even when you don't understand what is happening, you can trust that He is working for your good. If you feel this in your heart, if you believe that God is with you, write in the comments, "Lord, I trust in you. Guide my steps." Proverbs 19:21 is not just a verse, it is a truth that reminds us that no matter how many plans we make, God's purpose will always prevail. And that purpose is good, it is perfect, it is for our good. Today, I want to encourage you to trust in that purpose, to surrender your plans to God, to let go of control, and to allow Him to guide your life. Because when you do this, you experience a peace that surpasses all understanding. So, I invite you to make a declaration of faith. Write in the comments, "Lord, I trust in your purpose. Guide my steps and let your will be done." And remember, God is with you. He is working even now to fulfill His purpose in your life. Trust in Him. and you will see how his plan is infinitely better than anything you could imagine. Number 2, Isaiah 46 verse 10. I declare the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. Let me ask you something straightforward. Have you ever felt like you were walking in the dark, not knowing where to go or how things would turn out? That feeling of uncertainty, which seems to trap the heart in a mix of fear and doubt, is something we all face at some point. But there is a powerful truth that can completely transform the way you view these moments of uncertainty. God already knows the end, even before the beginning happens. Yes, he declares the end from the beginning. He sees what you cannot see. He knows what you do not yet know. He already knows every detail of the path before you even take the first step. And more than that, he not only knows the future, but also controls it. God sees the whole story at once. We as human beings are limited. We see only the present, and even that is incomplete. When we face difficulties, we often get stuck in the moment, unable to see how things will resolve. But Isaiah 46:10 reminds us that God is not limited by time. He sees the whole story, the past, the present, and the future, as one single panorama. Think about this. While you are worried about the next step, God already knows how your journey ends. He has seen all the twists and turns, every challenge, every victory, and he is guiding you towards the purpose he himself has established. What may seem like confusion to you is absolute clarity to God. Now do something with faith. Write in the comments, God, I trust in your control over my future. Declare this with all your heart, because when you acknowledge that God has seen and planned everything, fear loses its power and confidence takes its place. God's sovereignty is absolute. The second part of this verse is equally powerful. My purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. This means that there is no force in the universe capable of frustrating God's plans. He is sovereign. He is all-powerful. Nothing happens outside of his will, and nothing can prevent him from fulfilling what he has promised. When we face difficult situations, it can be tempting to think that something went wrong, that God lost control, or that we are off plan. But let me say this clearly. That never happens. Everything that occurs in your life, even the most difficult moments, is within God's plan. He is working in every detail, shaping every situation for the fulfillment of the purpose that he has already established for you. If you believe this, if this truth touches your heart, declare now, Lord, may your purpose be fulfilled in my life. Resting in God's control, uncertainty is part of life. There will be moments when you do not understand what is happening or why you are facing certain situations. But in those moments, remember, God is not confused. He does not see your life as an incomplete puzzle. He has already seen the complete picture, and every piece that seems not to fit now is being placed in the right spot. He knows what he is doing, and his purpose is perfect. This truth brings a peace that surpasses all understanding. Knowing that God is in control, that he knows the future, and that nothing can frustrate his plan, gives us the strength to carry on, even when everything seems uncertain. If you feel that you need this peace, write in the comments, God, I rest in your absolute control. And God's purpose is unshakable. One of the most beautiful parts of this verse is the certainty it conveys. God does not say maybe or if all goes well. He says firmly, my purpose will stand. This means nothing can change what God has planned. No circumstance, no human error, no opposing force. You might be facing challenges now that seem insurmountable. You may feel lost, that your plans have failed, or that the path has become unclear. But here is the good news. God's plans for you never fail. He has already decided what he will do, and he will fulfill every detail of the purpose he has laid out. If you believe that God is working in your life, even when you cannot see it, declare in the comments, God, I trust that your purpose will stand. Trust in the midst of uncertainty. When we face the unknown, it is easy to cling to fear. But what God invites us to do is exactly the opposite. Trust. Trust that He sees what we cannot see. Trust that He is in control even when everything seems chaotic. Trust that His purpose will stand regardless of the circumstances. Trusting in God does not mean that everything will be easy. It means that even in difficulties we can rest because we know that He is in command. We can face anything because we know that in the end, His will shall prevail. If you are facing a moment of uncertainty now, write, God, I trust in you, even when I do not understand the way. Hope in God's plan. Isaiah 46:10 is not just a reminder of God's sovereignty, it is a promise. It is the guarantee that His plan for you is not only perfect, but will also be fulfilled. God not only knows the future, He has declared it, and that means you can have hope. No matter how difficult the present may be, the future is secured in God's hands. His promises are firm, His words are true, and His purpose is unshakable. He has seen the end from the beginning, and He is guiding you to the destiny He has prepared for you. If you believe in this promise, write now, Lord, I trust in your plan and rest in your promise. Isaiah 46:10 teaches us that God not only sees the future but declares and controls it. He has already planned everything and ensured that His purpose will be fulfilled. For us, this is a source of peace, security, and hope. Today, you have the opportunity to rest in this truth, to entrust your uncertainties to God and trust that He is in control. No matter what you are facing, know that God's purpose for your life is greater than any challenge. Declare your faith in the comments. Say, God, I trust in your purpose and rest in your control. And remember, what God has planned for you will be fulfilled, because He is faithful. Number 3, Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Now let me ask a direct question. Have you ever felt like you are lost amidst everything happening around you? Have you ever wondered if the pain, frustrations, and challenges have any purpose? This verse is not just a promise. It is a living truth that reveals God's heart for you. He has plans for your life. They are not ordinary plans, but plans of welfare, of a future filled with hope. God's control amidst chaos. It's difficult to see a purpose in the midst of storms. When everything seems to be falling apart, when dreams are interrupted, it's natural to ask, where is God in all this? But Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us of something powerful. God never loses control. He doesn't improvise with your life. Every detail, every situation is under His care. Imagine this. The people of Israel heard this promise while they were exiled in Babylon. They were far from home, living as foreigners, feeling abandoned and forgotten. Even so, God sent a clear message. I have not forgotten you. I know exactly what I am doing. And He is saying the same thing to you today. Maybe you are in an emotional, spiritual, or even physical exile, facing circumstances that you cannot control. But know this, God has not forgotten you. He's working on something greater, even if now you cannot understand it. If you believe that God has plans for your life, write in the comments, Lord, I trust in your plans. God's plans for welfare. When God speaks of welfare plans, He is not promising a life without problems or a comfortable existence. He is talking about something much greater. The welfare that God offers is not just material. It is a state of peace, wholeness, and security that can only be found in Him. Have you ever faced a situation that seemed unbearable, but later realized that it made you stronger, wiser, closer to God? That's the welfare that God is building in your life. He uses even the most difficult moments to shape you, to prepare your heart and mind for the future that He has planned. Right now, Lord, shape me to fulfill your purpose. A future full of hope. The future God promises in Jeremiah 29:11 is not just any future. It is a future full of hope. But what does that mean in practice? It means that regardless of what you are facing right now, there is something greater and better ahead. God's hope is not based on probabilities or circumstances. It is based on His faithfulness. He is a God who keeps His promises, who never abandons those who trust in Him. No matter how dark the moment is, God is guiding you to a future where His peace, His joy, and His presence will be real in your life. If you believe that God has a future full of hope for you, declare, I believe in God's promise for my life. The context of trials. When God gave this promise to the people of Israel, they were in the midst of one of the greatest trials in their history. They were not living a moment of victory or celebration. They were in exile, far from everything they knew. But even there, God declared that their suffering had a purpose. He promised that the future would be better, that the exile would not be the end. The same applies to you. It may be that now you are in a moment of pain, doubt, or uncertainty, but know this: God is working even when you cannot see it. What seems to be the end may just be the beginning of what God is preparing. If you are willing to trust God, even in the midst of trials, write, Lord, I trust that you are working in my life. The purpose in hardships are never pleasant. But in Jeremiah 29:11, God shows us that they are not wasted. He uses them to shape us, to teach us, and to prepare us for the future that He has for us. Maybe you don't understand right now why you are going through certain situations. It might seem that God is distant. But let me say something with conviction. God is closer than you imagine. Every tear, every challenge is being used for something greater. If you believe that God is using even your difficulties for a greater purpose, declare, Lord, use my life to fulfill your plans. God's faithfulness is our hope. What makes Jeremiah 29:11 so powerful is not just what God promises, but who He is. He is faithful. He does not abandon His promises. The future He has planned for you does not depend on your circumstances, your failures, or your doubts. It depends solely on God's faithfulness. When you trust in Him, you are not just waiting for something good. You are placing your faith in a God who never fails, who never lies, and who always fulfills what He promises. This is more than hope. It is security. If you believe that God is faithful to fulfill His promises, write in the comments, Lord, I trust in your faithfulness. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us that even in the midst of the greatest difficulties, God has a plan. He is not improvising. He has not forgotten you. The future He promised is full of hope, and each step you take, even in difficult moments, is leading you to the fulfillment of that purpose. Today, you have the opportunity to trust in this promise, to surrender your fears, your doubts, and your worries to God, because in the end, He is in control, He is working, and the future He has for you is greater than you can imagine. Declare now, Lord, I trust in your plans and rest in your promise. And remember, God does not fail. The future He promised is guaranteed in His faithful hands. Number 4, Romans 8, verse 28. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Let me ask you something profound. Do you really believe that everything that happens in your life has a purpose? It's not an easy question to answer, especially when circumstances scream the opposite. But Romans 8:28 brings us such a powerful promise that it can completely change the way we see life. In all things, God works for the good of those who love Him. And when God says all, He is not excluding anything. This means that even the most difficult moments, the deepest pains, and the scariest challenges are being used by him for a greater good. God leaves nothing to chance. God does not make mistakes. He shapes think about the darkest moments you have ever lived. Those when it seemed like everything was out of control, when you asked yourself, why is this happening to me? Romans 8:28 reminds us that even in those moments, God is working. He is shaping your life like a potter shapes clay into something greater and more beautiful than you can imagine. God does not cause all suffering, but he never wastes pain. Every difficulty you face has a purpose, even when you cannot understand it. He is weaving a perfect plan, and what today seems like chaos will be revealed as part of a magnificent picture. If you believe that God is using even the hardships for your good, write in the comments, Lord, I trust that you are shaping my life according to your purpose. Must the greater good of God. It is important to understand that the good God promises is not necessarily what we desire or expect. It is not about immediate comfort or earthly success. God's good goes beyond that. He is molding us to become more like Christ. Yes, God works for our good, but this good is aligned with his eternal purpose. He's more interested in your spiritual growth than in your temporary comfort. You may face challenges that don't make sense right now, but each one of them is shaping you, forming a more mature character, a stronger faith, and a heart closer to God. If you trust that God is using trials to mold your character, declare, Lord, I trust that your plan for me is perfect even when I don't understand, called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28 also reminds us that this promise is for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. This means that God has a specific plan for each of us. You are not living a random existence. Your life has a unique meaning, a purpose designed by God even before you were born. When you face challenges, it's easy to lose sight of this purpose. But the truth is that God is using every situation to lead you to his calling. What seems like a loss right now may be what will lead you to the purpose he has prepared for you. If you believe that God has a unique purpose for your life, write, Lord, I trust in your calling for me, trusting God in silence. One of the hardest parts of trusting in Romans 8:28 is when God seems to be silent. You pray, seek answers, but all you find is silence. And in those moments, doubt can arise. God, are you really working for my good? Let me tell you something. God's silence never means God's absence. He's working behind the scenes, even when you can't see it. God does not abandon his children, and every moment of waiting is part of his perfect plan. If you are facing a moment of silence and still want to trust God, declare, Lord, even in your silence, I trust that you are working. Patience in the process. The good that God works is not always immediate. Sometimes it may take years for you to see the purpose behind a difficult situation. But here's the secret. God is never in a hurry because his plan is perfect. He is not like us, who want quick answers and immediate solutions. God works in his time, and his time is always the best. Therefore, we need patience and faith. Knowing that God is in control helps us persevere, even when the journey seems long and difficult. If you are willing to wait on God's timing, write, Lord, I trust in your timing and your plans. All things include everything. Romans 8:28 leaves no room for doubt. God works in all things for good. This means that there is nothing in your life that is outside of his control. The pains, the disappointments, the failures, all of it is being used for his greater good. It may be that right now you cannot see how this is possible. It may seem like your life is in pieces, but God sees the whole. He knows what he is doing, and he promises that in the end everything will make sense. If you believe that God is working in all areas of your life, declare, Lord, I trust that all things work together for my good. Romans 8:28 is more than a promise. It is an invitation to fully trust in God, even when everything seems out of control. He is working in every detail of your life, shaping you, refining your character, and guiding you to the purpose He has planned. Today, you have the opportunity to surrender everything to Him, your doubts, your pains, your dreams, because in the end, God is working for your good. And what He began in your life, He will complete. Declare now with faith, Lord, I surrender my life into your hands and trust that you are working for my good. Remember, God never fails. He is with you in all things, and His purpose is greater than any circumstance you may face. Number 5, Psalms 103, verse 19. The Lord has established His throne in heaven, and His kingdom rules over all. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like everything around you was out of control, like the world was adrift without direction? It's precisely in these moments that we need to remember the powerful truth found in Psalms 103:19. God is on the throne. He rules over everything, and nothing, absolutely nothing, escapes His control. This verse is not just a beautiful statement, it is an anchor for our faith. It reminds us that the Creator of the universe not only has authority, but exercises His reign with perfection and justice. God has not lost control, and He never will. God's throne is unshakable. The first part of this verse gives us a grand vision. The Lord has established His throne in heaven. This reminds us that God's throne is not an earthly, limited, or temporary throne. It is not subject to the changes, crises, or uncertainties we see in the world. God's throne is eternal, immutable, and unshakable. While human kingdoms rise and fall, while governments change, and the powers of this world are shaken, God's throne remains firm. He reigns sovereignly from the heavens, and His authority cannot be questioned or challenged. If you believe that God's throne is eternal and unshakable, declare now, Lord, I trust in your sovereign reign. God's kingdom rules over all. The second part of the verse is equally powerful. His kingdom rules over all. This means that there is no area, situation, or detail outside of God's sovereignty. He rules over the entire creation, over the nations, over time, and even over the circumstances of your life. Sometimes we look around us and all we see is chaos. Wars, injustices, illnesses, and difficulties can make us think that God has lost control. But let me tell you something. What seems like disorder to us is completely under God's control. He's moving the pieces of the puzzle so that at the right time, everything aligns with His purpose. If you trust that God is governing over all things, write, Lord, I trust in your governance over my life and the world. Nothing escapes God's control. The world often seems to be out of control, but Psalm 103:19 reminds us that God never loses command. He sees everything, knows everything, and controls everything. There is no decision, event, or person that is beyond His reach. This also includes your life. Every concern, every fear, every detail that keeps you awake at night is under the care of a sovereign God. He knows what you are facing. He sees your struggles and hears your prayers. And above all, He is in control of everything that happens to you. If you believe that God is taking care of every detail of your life, declare, Lord, I surrender my life to your perfect control. The justice of God's kingdom. We live in a world full of injustices. Often we ask ourselves, why does evil seem to prevail? Why do good things take so long to happen? But the kingdom of God is governed by perfect justice. It may seem that evil is winning, but God overlooks nothing. He is a just and faithful judge. Although we do not always see His justice at the moment we desire, we can be certain that, at the right time, it will be fully manifested. If you believe that God's justice will prevail, write, Lord, I trust in your perfect justice. Me, God's sovereignty is our security. To know that God is on the throne and that his kingdom rules over all gives us security. This means that no matter what happens in our lives or in the world, God is in control. His sovereignty is the guarantee that in the end, everything will align with his perfect purpose. If you are facing uncertainties or difficulties today, remember, God is still on the throne. He is taking care of you, ruling over your life, and ensuring that even in the hardest times, you are safe in his hands. If you believe that God is your security, declare, Lord, I trust in your sovereignty and rest in your control. Psalm 103:19 offers a truth that can transform the way we see the world. God is on the throne, and he rules over all. No matter what is happening around us, we can rest knowing that God's kingdom is eternal, just, and perfect. Today, you have the opportunity to hand over your worries, your doubts, and your fears to the God who rules over everything. Remember, he is in control and nothing escapes his oversight. Declare now, Lord, I trust in your throne and your absolute rule over everything. And remember, no matter what happens, God is still on the throne, and his kingdom will never be shaken. Number 6, Psalm 37, verse 5. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. Let me ask you, have you ever been in a moment when it felt like the weight of the world was on your shoulders? Those moments when decisions seem impossible, worries pile up, and the future looks uncertain? This verse offers us a transformative truth. We do not need to carry that weight alone. Psalm 37:5 is an invitation. It is not just advice or a suggestion, but a call to fully trust in the God who knows everything, sees everything, and can do everything. Commit your way to the Lord. This commitment is neither partial nor conditional. It is complete. It is the decision to take the burden off your hands and place it in the hands of the one who has the power to transform all things. What does it mean to commit your way? The word commit here is deeper than it appears. It does not simply mean asking for help or sharing your concerns with God. It means relinquishing control. It's recognizing that no matter how hard we try, our plans are limited, our vision is short, but God sees the whole picture. To commit your way means to trust him with your past, present, and future. It is saying, Lord, I do not know which path to take, but I know that you know what is best for me. I leave it in your hands. If you are willing to completely commit your way to the Lord, declare, Lord, I commit my way to you. The challenge of trusting God. After committing, the second step is to trust. And let's be honest, trusting is easier said than done, especially when things do not go as planned. To trust in God means to believe that he is in control, even when everything seems to be falling apart. It is knowing that he is working even when we cannot see it. It is having faith that even in the silence, God is acting. But trusting also means waiting on God's timing. And here lies one of the greatest challenges to our faith. We want immediate answers, but God works in his perfect timing. And God's timing is always perfect. If you are ready to trust in God's timing and plans, write, Lord, I trust in you even when I cannot see. The promise. God will act. The third part of this verse is a powerful guarantee, and he will act. This is not a maybe or an uncertain possibility. God promises to act. But here's something important. He will act according to his will, which is good, perfect, and pleasing. God does not act merely to relieve our immediate suffering, but to accomplish a greater plan. He sees what we cannot see. He knows what is best, even when we cannot understand. Sometimes his action may not be what we expected, but it will always be what we need. If you believe that God is acting in your life, even if you don't see the results yet, declare, Lord, I trust that you are acting. Waiting on God is growing in faith. Trusting in God while waiting for His action is a process that strengthens our faith. During the wait, God works not just on the situation, but also on us. He shapes our character, teaches us patience, and strengthens our trust in Him. This active waiting, where we continuously surrender, trust, and move forward, is where we experience the deepest spiritual growth. God uses the waiting period to prepare us for what He has reserved. If you are willing to wait on God's timing, knowing that He is acting right, Lord, I wait for your perfect timing. The peace that comes from surrender. When we commit our way to the Lord and trust in Him, something extraordinary happens. The peace of God fills our heart. It is not a peace based on circumstances, but a peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, that He is acting, and that our future is secure in His hands. This peace frees us from the burden of trying to control everything. It allows us to rest, even in the midst of life's storms, because we know that God is in command. If you desire to experience this peace, declare, Lord, I rest in you. A daily act of faith. Commit your way to the Lord is not something we do once and forget. It is a daily decision. Each day brings new challenges, new decisions, new concerns, and each day we are called to surrender everything anew, to trust once again. But the more we surrender, the more we trust, and the more we trust, the more we see God at work. And this strengthens our faith to continue surrendering. It is a cycle of growth, of dependence on God that brings us closer to Him. If you are committed to making this surrender a daily habit, write, Lord, I commit my way to you every day. Psalm 37:5 gives us an invitation and a promise. The invitation is, commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him. The promise is, He will act. Today, you have the opportunity to stop carrying the burden alone. You can surrender your worries, your decisions, and your struggles to God and trust that He is in control. And in doing so, you can rest in the certainty that God is at work, always for your good and according to His perfect purpose. Declare now with faith, Lord, I commit my way to you. I trust in you and rest, for I know that you are at work. Remember, God never fails. He is in control, and what He has promised, He will fulfill. Number 7, Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Now let me ask you, how many times have you tried to solve everything on your own, thinking you knew the best way to go? You may have had success in some things, but in others, things didn't turn out as planned. It is precisely in these moments that Proverbs 3:5-6 offers us an instruction that transforms the way we face life. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust with all your heart. This trust is not partial, it is not conditional. The verse calls us to trust with all our heart. This means giving everything, your worries, your plans, your fears, and even your dreams, into God's hands. It is easy to trust God when things are going well, when paths seem clear. But truly trusting is an act of faith that goes beyond circumstances. It means recognizing that God knows what is best, even when we can't see the next step. If you are ready to trust God with all your heart, declare now, Lord, I trust you with all that I am. Do not rely solely on your own understanding. Here is an important point. Do not lean on your own understanding. How often do we trust our own experience, knowledge, and capability to make decisions, believing that we know what is best? While human understanding is useful, it is limited. God sees what we cannot see. He knows the past, the present, and the future. He sees the full picture, while we see only a small part. When we rely exclusively on our own prudence, we risk making decisions based on an incomplete view. Acknowledging our limitations is not weakness, It is wisdom. It is an act of humility to say, God, I don't know everything, but I trust that you do. 2. If you are willing to stop depending solely on your own understanding, declare, Lord, I trust in your wisdom, not mine. Acknowledge the Lord in all your ways. The next instruction is simple but profound. Acknowledge the Lord in all your ways. This means including God in all areas of your life, your decisions, your relationships, your plans, your struggles. Recognizing the Lord means giving him the central place, seeking his guidance in every choice, and living in such a way that his priorities are reflected in everything you do. It is not about seeking God only in times of crisis, but making him a part of every moment and every decision. If you are ready to include God in all aspects of your life, write, Lord, I acknowledge your presence in all my ways, and he will make your paths straight. Here is the promise. God will make your paths straight. This does not mean that everything will be perfect or that you will not face difficulties, but it means that God will be aligning the steps of your life with his purpose. Sometimes God removes obstacles from our path. Other times, he gives us the strength and wisdom to face them, and on some occasions, he leads us on a completely different path, one that is infinitely better than we could have imagined. This promise gives us security. When we trust and acknowledge God, we can rest, knowing that he is guiding us, correcting our mistakes, and leading us to the best path. If you believe that God is making your path straight, declare, Lord, I trust that you are guiding my steps. The challenge of letting go of control. Trusting God implies letting go of control. This is not easy. We like to feel that we are in command, that we have total control over our lives. But the truth is, total control was never ours. When we let go of control and give everything to God, we find freedom. We do not need to bear the weight of difficult decisions alone. We can rest, knowing that God is in control and that he knows exactly what he is doing. If you are ready to let go of control and give everything to God, declare, Lord, I give control of my life to you. The peace of trusting in God. When we follow the instruction of Proverbs 3:5-6, trust with all our heart, stop relying on our own understanding, and acknowledge God in all our ways, something incredible happens. The peace of God envelops us. It is not a peace based on circumstances, but a peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, that he is guiding our steps, and that in the end, everything will align with his purpose. This peace frees us from anxiety, fear, and the need to control everything. It gives us the assurance that God is with us, working in all things for our good. If you desire this peace in your life, write, Lord, I trust your direction and I rest in you. Proverbs 3:5-6 offers us clear instruction and a powerful promise. When we trust in God with all our heart, stop relying on our own understanding, and acknowledge the Lord in all our ways, he promises to make our path straight. Today, you have the opportunity to hand over your worries, your decisions, and your plans to God. Trust in him, acknowledge his presence in your life, and rest in the certainty that he is guiding your steps. Declare now, with faith, Lord, I trust in you with all my heart. I entrust my ways to you, and I rest knowing that you are making my paths straight. Remember, God never fails. When we trust in him, we are always led to the best path. Number 8, Ephesians 1:11. In him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. Have you ever stopped to reflect on how profound it is that you were chosen by God? It is not something generic or random. God, in his infinite wisdom and love, chose you. He included you in his eternal plan, designed even before the creation of the world. This is not just a theological fact. It is a transformative truth that redefines who we are, how we live, and how we see our purpose. D. Chosen and predestined in love. The word predestined might seem difficult to comprehend, but at its heart is God's loving sovereignty. Being predestined does not mean that we do not have a choice, but that God, in his infinite wisdom, has already planned everything for our good. He called us, chose us, and invited us to be part of his perfect plan. This choice was not based on what we have done or what we could do. It is not something we deserve or have earned. It is an act of grace, an act of love. God chose us because he loves us and desires for us to participate in his redemptive work in the world. If you believe you were chosen by God, declare, "Lord, I thank you for choosing me with your love." God's plan is perfect. This verse reminds us that everything in our lives is aligned with God's plan, according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. This means that nothing happens outside of his control. Even in the most difficult moments, when it seems like everything is out of place, God is working. He's not improvising or reacting to circumstances. He is orchestrating every detail of our lives to fulfill his eternal purpose. If you believe that God is in control of all things, write, "Lord, I trust in your perfect plan for my life." We are part of something greater. Being predestined is not just about our personal destiny. It is about being part of a much bigger plan, something eternal. God is building his kingdom, and he has called us to be a part of it. This gives us a purpose that transcends anything we can imagine. You are not here by accident. You are not living a life without meaning. Every moment, every situation is part of a divine narrative. God has a plan for you, and that plan is grand. If you wish to live fully within God's plan, declare, "Lord, help me walk in your eternal purpose." Trust in God's sovereignty. The idea that God does all things according to the counsel of his will gives us an unshakable certainty. God is in control. Nothing is too big or too small to escape his control. This means we can rest, even in moments of uncertainty. When we do not understand what is happening, we can trust that God knows. He sees the big picture. His will is good, perfect, and pleasing. If you wish to rest in God's sovereignty, write, "Lord, I rest in your perfect will." Our identity in Christ. This verse also reminds us of who we are in Christ. We were chosen in him. This means our identity is not in what we do, what we have, or what people say about us. Our identity is in the fact that we belong to God. Knowing that we were chosen by God gives us a sense of value and security that the world cannot offer. We are not just anybody. We are sons and daughters of the King, called to live a life full of purpose and meaning. If you wish to embrace your identity in Christ, declare, "Lord, I am yours, chosen for your purpose." Our role in God's plan. Knowing that we are part of God's eternal plan challenges us to live intentionally. Every decision, every action should reflect God's purpose for our lives. This means seeking his will in everything we do, allowing him to guide us and use us for his glory. This truth also gives us a mission. We are called not only to receive God's blessings, but to share his love and grace with the world. We are part of something much greater than ourselves. If you want to live aligned with God's purpose, declare, "Lord, use me to fulfill your eternal plan." Ephesians 1:11 reminds us that we are chosen, predestined, and included in God's perfect plan. This truth gives us identity, purpose, and security. We are not living a meaningless life. Every detail of our story is aligned with God's eternal design. Today, you have the opportunity to embrace this truth and live intentionally, trusting in God's sovereignty and seeking his purpose for your life. Declare now with faith, "Lord, I trust in your perfect plan and surrender to your will." And remember, you were not chosen by chance. God has a plan for you, and that plan is infinitely greater than you can imagine. Number 9, Job 23:10. He knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Now think with me. How many times have you felt lost in the midst of a trial, wondering why God allowed it? At moments like these, it's easy to believe we are alone, that God might be distant or that he doesn't understand what we are going through. But Job 23:10 brings us a powerful and comforting truth. God knows the way. God knows your way. This verse begins with a declaration that can completely change the way we see our difficulties. He knows the way that I take. This means that even when you don't understand what's happening, God knows exactly where you are and where you are going. Nothing escapes God's knowledge. Each detail of what you are experiencing is under his watchful eye. Your pain, your struggles, your questions, God is aware of everything, and more than knowing, he cares deeply. You are not alone, even if at the moment you can't feel his presence. If you believe that God knows your way, declare, Lord, I trust that you know exactly where I am. The trials refine. Like gold, Job continues by saying, when he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold. Here lies one of the greatest truths about trials. They don't come to destroy us, but to refine us. God uses difficulties to shape us, to purify us, to remove everything in us that doesn't reflect his glory. The process of refining gold is intense. Gold is placed in the fire not to be destroyed, but so that its impurities can be removed. The same happens with us. God allows us to go through trials so that we may be strengthened and purified. If you are facing a difficult time, remember, God is transforming you into something more precious than pure gold. If you believe that trials have a purpose, declare, Lord, I trust in your refining process in my life. God knows how long you can endure. One of the biggest challenges of trials is their duration. We want the difficulty to pass quickly, but often it lasts longer than we expected. Job 23:10 reminds us that God is like an experienced goldsmith. He knows exactly how much heat to apply and for how long. He does not allow you to stay a second longer in the fire than necessary. God does not want to destroy you. He wants to mold you. And when the process is finished, you come out stronger, purer, more prepared for the purpose he has for your life. If you are willing to trust God's timing, declare, Lord, I trust that you know the right time to act. Trials reveal God's glory in you. When gold is refined, it reflects the image of the goldsmith. In the same way, when we go through trials, we come out more like Christ. Trials draw us closer to God, teach us to depend on him, and transform us into reflections of his glory. Think about this. Every challenge you face has the potential to reveal God's glory in your life. When you persevere and trust in God, you become a living testimony of his power. If you wish to reflect God's glory, declare, Lord, mold me so that I reflect your glory. God never leaves you alone. It is easy to think that during trials, God is distant. But the truth is the exact opposite. God is with you every step of the way. Just as the goldsmith carefully watches the gold in the fire, God is by your side, caring for you, sustaining you, and ensuring that the final result is perfect. You may not understand now what God is doing, but you can be sure that he is present. He not only knows the way, he is walking with you. If you trust that God is by your side, even in the most difficult moments, declare, Lord, I know that you are with me in all circumstances. The result, as refined gold. The promise of Job 23:10 is clear. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. This means that at the end of the trial, you will not be the same. You will be stronger, purer, fuller of God's presence. Trials can be painful, but the result is priceless. When the process ends, you are more prepared for God's purpose in your life, more capable of facing challenges, and closer to Him. If you believe you will come out stronger from your trials, declare, "Lord, I trust that I will come out stronger and purer for your glory." Job 23:10 reminds us that God knows the path we walk. He sees every detail, allows the trials to refine us, and is present in every stage of the process. And in the end, we come out like gold, stronger, purer, more like Christ. Today, you can decide to trust God, even in the midst of trials. Surrender your struggles, your doubts, and your fears to Him. Trust that He is in control, that He is shaping you, and that the final result will be glorious. Declare now, with faith, "Lord, I trust in your plan, even in the midst of trials, and I know I will come out like gold." And remember, God is with you. He knows the way, and what He is doing in your life is infinitely greater than you can imagine. Number 10. Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. How many times have you felt frustrated because things don't happen when you'd like them to? It is natural to want our prayers answered now, our dreams fulfilled quickly, and our difficulties to disappear at once. But Ecclesiastes 3:1 brings us a truth that challenges this anxiety. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. It orchestrates the times of life. This verse reminds us that life does not happen by chance. God is the one who orchestrates the times and seasons of our life. He has a perfect plan, and everything occurs at the exact moment within this plan. It is never too early nor too late. It is always in His time. But here is the challenge: trusting in God's timing when it doesn't align with ours. We want quick answers, immediate solutions, but God, in His infinite wisdom, sees beyond what we can see. He knows when we are ready to receive something, when it is the right time to act, and even when we need to wait to grow. If you believe that God is in control of the timing of your life, declare, "Lord, I trust in your perfect timing." Undine the beauty of life's seasons. Ecclesiastes 3 teaches us that life is made up of seasons. There are times to plant and times to harvest, times to cry and times to laugh, times of silence and times to speak. Each season has its purpose, and none of them are permanent. Maybe right now you are in a season of waiting or a challenging period. It may be hard to see the purpose in the moment, but know this: God doesn't waste any season. He uses each one to shape you, to teach you, and to prepare you for what is to come. If you are in a difficult season and wish to trust that God has a purpose for it, write, "Lord, help me trust in the purpose of each season of my life." Indeed, this waiting is an act of faith. Waiting in God's timing is not easy. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening, as if we are standing still while the world continues to turn. But waiting is not inactivity. Waiting is an act of faith. It is during the wait that God works in our hearts, shapes us, and prepares us for the next stage. Waiting teaches us to trust, to depend on God, instead of relying on our own strength. If you are willing to wait in God's timing, declare, "Lord, I trust in you while I wait." God's timing is always perfect. You may not understand now why certain things take time or do not happen as expected. But one thing is certain: God's timing is always perfect. He is never late. He knows exactly when to act. When we try to speed up the time or force situations, we usually make mistakes. But when we trust in God's plan, He opens the right doors at the right time. What is meant to be yours will come to you at the right time. If you believe that God acts in perfect timing, declare, "Lord, I rest in your perfection." Each season has its value. Even the difficult seasons have value. They teach us lessons we would not learn otherwise. They strengthen us, draw us closer to God, and help us grow. Just as winter is necessary for the arrival of spring, difficulties are often needed to prepare the way for blessings. The season you are in now is shaping you for something greater. If you wish to learn and grow in each season, declare, Lord, use this season to shape me according to your purpose. The peace of trusting in God's timing. When we accept that we do not have control over the times of our lives, we find peace. Leaving control in God's hands frees us from stress and anxiety. We can rest, knowing that He is in charge and that His plan is perfect. This peace does not come from circumstances, but from the certainty that God is at work, even when we cannot see. He is taking care of every detail, aligning everything for the good of those who trust in Him. If you desire this peace, declare, Lord, I rest in your plans and trust in your timing. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us that everything has its time. God has a perfect plan, and everything happens at the exact moment within that plan. When we learn to trust in this timing, we find peace, purpose, and direction. Today, you can choose to set aside anxiety and the desire to control everything. Entrust your worries, your plans, and your waiting into God's hands. Trust that He is in control and that everything will happen at the right time. Declare now with faith, Lord, I trust in your plan, in your time, and in the purpose of each season of my life. And remember, what God has planned for you will happen at the perfect moment, because He never fails. Number 11, Isaiah 55, verses 8 and 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. How many times have you looked at your life and thought, this wasn't supposed to happen this way? What went wrong? The truth is that many times what we consider to be failure, delay, or detour is actually part of a greater plan that God is orchestrating. Isaiah 55. 8-9 reminds us that God's thoughts and ways are far beyond our understanding, the infinite wisdom of God. These verses teach us that God operates on a level that is beyond our capacity for understanding. His thoughts and ways are infinitely superior to ours. This is not meant to discourage us, but to free us from the need to understand everything. Imagine a child trying to understand the decisions of their parents. To the child, some things may seem unfair or confusing, but the parents know what they are doing. Similarly, our vision is limited, while God sees the whole picture. He is operating with a wisdom that encompasses the past, the present, and the future. If you believe that God has infinite wisdom and a greater plan for your life, declare, Lord, I trust in your thoughts and in your ways. When the ways don't make sense. We all go through moments when God's ways seem puzzling. We want a clear answer, a quick solution, but God acts in ways we don't always understand. This can be frustrating, but it is also an opportunity to exercise faith. God's ways don't need to make sense to be good. What seems like a closed door may actually be His protection. What seems like a delay may be preparation for something greater. If you are facing a moment of uncertainty, declare, Lord, even without understanding, I trust that your ways are better than mine. With the greatness of God's thoughts. Isaiah gives us a powerful image. Just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are God's thoughts compared to ours. This means that while we are focused on the present, on our immediate concerns, God is operating from an eternal perspective. God sees beyond what we can see. He knows what is best for us, not just now, but in the context of eternity. This challenges us to trust, even when we don't have all the answers. If you believe that God's thoughts are beyond what you can imagine, declare, Lord, I rest in your infinite wisdom. The invitation to humility. These verses also invite us to humility. Often we want to control everything, understand everything, plan every detail of our lives. But Isaiah 55, 8-9 reminds us that we are not called to control, but to trust. True peace comes when we recognize that we do not need to have all the answers because we trust who God is. He is faithful, loving, and perfectly wise. When we let go and surrender to God's plan, we experience a rest that only trust in His sovereignty can bring. If you desire to completely surrender to God's plans, declare, "Lord, I give the control of my life to you." God is working even in the silence. Many times, when God seems to be silent, we may think He is distant. But Isaiah 55, 8-9 reminds us that God is always working, even when we cannot perceive it. What you see as a delay may actually be God preparing the ground for something greater. He is moving the pieces of the puzzle, adjusting every detail, so that at the right time, His perfect plan will be revealed in your life. If you believe that God is working, even when you don't understand, declare, "Lord, I trust that you are acting behind the scenes of my life." The peace of knowing that God knows more. When we accept that God's thoughts and ways are higher than ours, we find peace. We don't need to understand everything. We don't need to solve everything. We can rest in the assurance that God is in control and that His plans are good. This peace frees us from anxiety, fear, and the need to have all the answers. It allows us to live trusting that God knows what He is doing and that He is guiding every step of our path. If you desire this peace, declare, "Lord, I rest in your will and trust in your plan." Isaiah 55, 8-9 reminds us that God's thoughts and ways are far beyond what we can comprehend. He operates from an eternal perspective, guiding every detail of our lives with perfect wisdom. Today, you have the opportunity to trust in this God who knows more, who sees more, and who always acts for our good. Let go of control, surrender your plans to Him, and rest in the assurance that His ways are always better. Declare now with faith, "Lord, I trust that your thoughts and ways are higher than mine, and I surrender my life to your perfect plan." And remember, you don't need to understand everything, but you can trust in who God is. He knows what He is doing, and the result will be infinitely better than you can imagine. Romans 11:33. Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable His judgments, and His paths beyond tracing out. There are moments when we feel lost, trying to understand why certain things happen in our lives. We want clear, logical answers that bring us peace. But this verse reminds us that God's wisdom is so deep that it goes beyond our human understanding. How unsearchable His judgments and His paths beyond tracing out. God's wisdom is infinite. This verse begins with a declaration of admiration. Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God! This shows us that God's wisdom has no limits. He not only sees what is happening now, He sees the whole picture. While we try to piece together the puzzle of life, God already has the complete picture. He knows how every detail connects and how every decision affects the future. He does not just understand the circumstances, He knows every heart, every intention, and every consequence. If you believe that God has infinite and perfect wisdom, declare, "Lord, I trust in your wisdom even when I do not understand." God's judgments are perfect. The word judgments in this verse refers to God's decisions and actions. Often, we wonder why He allows certain things, why something happened in a way we did not expect. But this verse reminds us that God's judgments are unsearchable, beyond our ability to understand. What may seem unfair or senseless to us is actually part of a greater and perfect plan. God does not make decisions by chance. Each of His judgments is motivated by His infinite wisdom and perfect love. If you trust that God's judgments are perfect, declare, "Lord, I rest in your decisions, knowing they are always just. God's ways are higher. The verse also speaks of God's ways, unsearchable. This means that we cannot trace or fully comprehend the methods by which God operates. Often we want to understand the reason for every situation. We want answers. But Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us that God's ways are higher than ours. He operates on a level that is beyond our human capacity. And that is a good thing, because it invites us to trust in Him. If you are willing to trust in God's ways, declare, Lord, I trust that your ways are better than mine. Humility before the greatness of God. Romans 11:33 also calls us to humility. Sometimes we want to control everything, find explanations for everything that happens. But this verse reminds us that God is infinitely greater and wiser than we are. Acknowledging this frees us from the need to understand everything. We can release control and trust that God knows what He is doing. Humility before His greatness leads us to a place of surrender and rest. If you wish to surrender to God's wisdom, declare, Lord, I accept that I don't need to understand everything because I trust in you. Worship that comes from trust. When we recognize the depth of God's wisdom, our natural response is worship. Instead of trying to decipher every detail, we can simply admire His greatness. Worshipping God for who He is, wise, just, and perfect, brings us peace and strengthens us. If you wish to worship God for His infinite wisdom, declare, Lord, I praise you because your ways are perfect and your thoughts are higher than mine. Living in peace with God's wisdom. Knowing that God has perfect knowledge and unfathomable judgments gives us a new perspective on life. When we face moments of doubt, confusion, or difficulty, we can rest assured that God is in control. You do not need to have all the answers. You can trust that God is working for your good, even when you do not understand the process. He is guiding every detail of your life with love and wisdom. If you wish to live in peace with God's wisdom, declare, Lord, I trust in your plan and rest in your wisdom. Romans 11:33 is an invitation to admire the greatness of God and rest in His wisdom. His thoughts, judgments, and ways are beyond our understanding, but they are always perfect. Today you can surrender your doubts and worries to God, knowing that He is in control and that His decisions are always motivated by love and wisdom. Declare now with faith, Lord, I trust in the depth of your wisdom and rest in your unfathomable ways. And remember, you do not need to understand everything, but you can fully trust in the God who knows everything. Numbers 13, Isaiah 40, verse 28. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and His understanding no one can fathom. How many times have you felt that you have reached your limit, that you have no strength to continue? It is in these moments that Isaiah 40:28 becomes a powerful reminder of who God is and how He operates. He is the everlasting God, the creator of all that exists, the one who never grows tired and whose wisdom goes beyond what we can comprehend. God is the everlasting God. The first part of this verse calls us to remember who God is. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God. This means that God has no beginning or end. He is beyond time while we are confined to the now. As we face the ups and downs of life, the everlasting God remains constant. He does not change, does not tire, and does not fail. Knowing this brings us security because we can trust that He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. If you believe that God is eternal and unchanging, declare, Lord, I trust in your eternity and your constant presence. God is the creator of all. Isaiah continues to remind us that God is the creator of the whole earth. He not only created the heavens, the earth, and everything that exists, but also maintains all things under his control. When we feel overwhelmed by challenges, we need to remember that the same God who created the universe is the God who takes care of us. He has absolute power over all things, including our lives, our problems, and our worries. If you trust that God, the Creator, is taking care of you, declare, Lord, I trust that you have control over all things. God never gets tired. This is one of the most comforting statements of the verse. He does not get tired or weary. While we, with our human limitations, often reach our limits, God never does. He is the inexhaustible source of strength, renewal, and power. In moments when we feel that we cannot go on, we can seek in God the strength we need. He is always available, always present, always strong. If you wish to depend on God's strength, declare, Lord, I trust in your strength that never runs out. God's wisdom is unfathomable. The last part of the verse reminds us that God's wisdom is unfathomable. This means that his plans, decisions, and ways are beyond our understanding. Many times we face situations that seem unfair or make no sense, but God sees the complete picture. He knows what he is doing, even when we do not understand. Trusting in God's unfathomable wisdom is an act of faith that frees us from the need to control or understand everything. If you wish to trust in God's wisdom, declare, Lord, I accept that your wisdom is greater than my understanding. God is always present. Isaiah 40:28 also reminds us of God's constant presence. He is not a distant or indifferent creator. He is deeply involved in our lives, sustaining us, renewing us, and guiding us. When we feel alone or abandoned, we need to remember that God is by our side, always available to strengthen us. He not only sees us, but also helps us in every moment. If you believe that God is present in your life, declare, Lord, I trust that you are with me at all times. Rest in the greatness of God. The truth of Isaiah 40:28 invites us to rest. When we recognize that God is eternal, tireless, and that his wisdom is perfect, we can hand our worries over to him. We don't need to carry the weight of our struggles alone. God invites us to trust in him, to depend on his strength, and to rest in his infinite ability to take care of us. If you wish to rest in God, declare, Lord, I hand my worries over to you and rest in your strength. Isaiah 40:28 offers us a powerful reminder. God is eternal, the creator of all, and never grows tired. He is in control, even when we do not understand. His wisdom is perfect, and we can trust in him in all circumstances. Today, you can choose to trust this eternal God, seek strength from him, and rest in the assurance that he is taking care of you. Declare now with faith, Lord, I trust in your strength, in your wisdom, and in your constant presence. And remember, even when your strength runs out, God never tires. He is the inexhaustible source of strength that sustains you at all times. Number 14, Psalms 145, verse 17. The Lord is righteous in all his ways and kind in all his works. Have you ever stopped to think about the perfect balance between God's justice and goodness? Sometimes it can be difficult to understand how these two characteristics coexist without conflict. But Psalm 145:17 reminds us that in all that God does, he is both just and good. This truth is essential for us to understand God's character and how he acts in our lives and in the world. The perfect justice of God. When we say that God is just, it means that everything he does is in accordance with what is right and perfect. He does not act based on volatile emotions or human preferences. God is the absolute standard of justice. This justice assures us that God does not ignore evil, nor does he fail to fulfill his promises. He is faithful to his word and always acts righteously. Even when we do not understand what is happening, we can trust that God is acting justly because he sees what we do not see and knows what we do not know. If you believe that God is just in everything he does, declare, Lord, I trust in your perfect justice. Chant the infinite goodness of God. At the same time, God is good in all his works. His goodness is not limited but infinite. It manifests in various ways, in the daily care he gives us, in the blessings we receive, and above all in the grace that reaches us even when we do not deserve it. God is not just, he is also compassionate. He acts for our good, even when we do not understand. His goodness is not just a characteristic, it is an essential part of who he is. If you recognize God's goodness in your life, declare, Lord, I praise your infinite goodness. Justice and goodness in perfect harmony. What makes God so unique is that his justice and goodness operate together in perfect unity. He's never just at the expense of being good, nor is he good at the expense of being just. In everything that God does, these two characteristics balance perfectly. When God disciplines, he does so with love. When he forgives, he does not ignore justice. The price was paid through Christ. This gives us the confidence that God will always act in a way that is both just and good, to fulfill his perfect plan in our lives. If you trust this perfect balance, declare, Lord, I trust that you are just and good in all that you do. When we don't understand God's justice, sometimes we look around and see injustices. It seems that evil prospers and things are not right. In these moments, we may question God's justice, but Psalm 145:17 reminds us that God is just in all his ways. Even when we don't understand what's happening, we can trust that he is operating justly. God sees beyond what we see. He is working on plans that go beyond our comprehension. What appears to be a delay or silence is actually God acting at the right time. If you want to trust in God's justice, even amidst uncertainties, declare, Lord, even when I don't understand, I trust that you are just. When we don't feel God's goodness, in moments of pain or difficulty, it can be hard to feel God's goodness. We ask, if God is good, why am I going through this? But God's goodness does not disappear in the storm. It is present in every detail, sustaining us and guiding us. Often, it is in difficult moments that God's goodness manifests more deeply, bringing comfort, strength, and hope. He never leaves us alone. If you want to see God's goodness amidst difficulties, declare, Lord, I trust in your goodness, even in difficult moments. Reflecting God's justice and goodness, as followers of God, we are called to reflect his character in our lives. This means acting with justice, being integral in all we do, and showing kindness, treating others with compassion and love. Living this way brings us closer to God and allows us to be his instruments in the world. When we act with justice and kindness, we reflect who God is. If you wish to live according to God's justice and kindness, declare, Lord, help me reflect your justice and kindness in my life. Rest in God's nature. Knowing that God is just and kind gives us peace. No matter what we face, we can trust that he is in control, acting for our good and his glory. He never acts wrongly or thoughtlessly. Everything God does is perfect. This trust allows us to rest even amidst uncertainties. We can give our concerns to him, knowing that he is taking care of everything. If you wish to rest in God's justice and kindness, declare, Lord, I give my life to you and rest in your perfection. Psalm 145:17 reminds us that God is just in all his ways and kind in all his works. This truth gives us confidence, peace, and hope. We can trust him in every circumstance, knowing that he will always act justly and kindly. Today, you can choose to trust in God's justice and kindness. Declare now with faith, Lord, I trust that you are just and kind in everything you do, and I entrust my life to your perfect care. And remember, even when we don't understand, God is in control, working with justice and kindness to fulfill His plans in our lives. As we conclude this journey through the Scriptures, the truth that emerges is clear and powerful. God has a sovereign, perfect, and personal plan for each of us. No matter the challenges we face, the detours we seem to take, or the moments of uncertainty, we can rest assured that His purpose will always prevail. Every step we take, every trial we go through, is part of a greater plan that God has already written with love and wisdom. Trust in God's plan. When we face difficulties, it is natural to question, why is this happening? Or how does this fit into God's plan? But as we have seen throughout the Scriptures, God never loses control. He is orchestrating every detail of our lives, even the painful moments, to shape us, strengthen us, and draw us closer to Him. The key is to commit our ways to the Lord and trust Him completely. That is what transforms our perspective and allows us to see trials not as punishments, but as opportunities to grow and depend even more on Him. A greater purpose. God chose you. He called and predestined you for an eternal purpose. This truth should be the foundation of your life. No matter what others say or what you face, you have value in God's eyes, and He is working something extraordinary in your life. And even when you can't see the next step, know that God has already prepared the way. He sees beyond what you can imagine and is working for your good. His purpose is full of hope, and He promises never to abandon you. An invitation to share and grow. If this message touched your heart, I want to encourage you not to keep this hope to yourself. Share this message with someone who needs to hear these words of faith and encouragement. There may be someone in your life who is going through a difficult time and needs to know that God is in control and has a perfect plan. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel to continue receiving these messages that strengthen our faith and draw us closer to God. Together, we can learn, grow, and delve even deeper into the divine word. If you have made it this far, it shows your dedication and commitment to seeking God with all your heart. Comment, "I am closer to God," so that we can celebrate this journey of faith together. Remember, growing spiritually is a continuous and rewarding journey. Keep seeking God's wisdom, delving into His word, and living with the confidence that, in all things, His purpose will prevail. May God greatly bless your life, and never forget, His plan for you is greater than you can imagine. As we conclude this journey through the Scriptures, it becomes clear that God has a sovereign and perfect plan for each of us. Everything we face, the joys, the pains, the doubts, is part of a greater purpose. Even when we do not understand why, we can trust that God is in control, guiding each step with justice, goodness, and love. Now, I want to invite you to reflect. How did this message speak to your heart? Are you ready to fully trust God's plan, even in uncertainties? If this word touched your life, comment below, "I trust in God's purpose." Share how this message impacted you and how God is working in your life. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep receiving messages that strengthen your faith and your walk with God. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any content. And if this message edified your heart, leave your like. This way, you help us reach more people with this word of hope. May God bless your life abundantly. Remember, His purpose will prevail, and you can rest assured that He is in control.